You know, when Dave gets something in his mind, he's like, he wants to talk immediately.
Yeah, right.
I
So I called him up. I didn't know he was away.
Yeah, yeah.
And he picked up the phone.
Yeah,
so that's on him.
So I picked up and said, "Hey, Dave, what's going on?" And he's like, "Talk to me about Explorers. Like, what's interesting about Explorers?"
Yeah.
My opinion, and I'm open to being disproven, but my opinion is that Explorers are more interesting than people give them credit for, particularly polar Explorers.
Yeah.
I know there are different case sizes. I know there's a long history here, but no one's really talking about it. We have a new and exciting content concept for you guys today. We're going to be sitting down with a friend of mine and collector, Dave, and talking about a ton. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Chef IQ. And today's conversation is about collecting, not just this particular Rolex, but about collecting watches. Just picking up this beautiful Rolex Explorer that he just purchased from Theo Harris shop. And we're not just talking about this Rolex, although we will show it to you, but we're talking about kind of collecting philosophy. We're talking about your extensive collection, which, yes, you have Rolexes and they're really cool, but you also have, you have a ton of other stuff, right, into World War watches. And, and we're talking about, what does it look like generationally from here? What is the next generation, right? And what does it look like? How do you build a watch collection that means something to you and is maybe a pleasure to build as opposed to playing the authorized dealer game? So we're talking about a lot of brands today. Really excited. Dave, thanks for sitting down.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I'm a big fan. Watch you every day and feel like your family. I know your family. I know you. I love when you do your mom and your dad and your grandfather. Bless us all. Just great.
Thank you very much. Well, here's your Rolex Explorer too.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll just get into the episode. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Dave just picked up a really great Rolex Explorer polar dial with some awesome patina. I should have let you open it.
No, you do it. I'm too nervous. I don't want to handle it. You do it.
Come on. So this is not Dave's first Rolex Sport model, but Dave's collection is not limited to Rolex Sport models.
Yeah, this is the bomb.
That's a great watch.
This is a watch.
Yeah. I love the yellow patina, obviously, to the to the Explorer text.
Oh yeah.
It's just a fabulous watch.
Yeah. It was funny too because I didn't know anything about patina.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it was a thing and people sought after it. But I started doing research, and it's like, why do people like patina? And one of the and realize this is all on Reddit. So before you start hating, they were saying because the patina can attest to, but you can fake the patina, attest to the vintage and the heritage. But to see patina on a modern watch. People don't know how to they don't know what to make of it.
Right, it's very rare. Right, patina is by definition it's kind of the product of faulty sealants or paints that were from day one destined to decay.
Absolutely.
That is a problem on the manufacturer's end. There's no doubt, but does that problem yield something that is beautiful and interesting? That's the question, and it's a case-by-case basis. I think that patina is always interesting, but it's not always beautiful. But some cases it's very beautiful, right? I mean, and it's very, obviously you can spend millions of dollars on patina when you're going into Paul Newman Daytonas and things like that, and that does happen. People do spend these huge premiums, but I guess by necessity, I'd been able to buy watches like that. So I've always said, well, what can I buy that is more affordable that I can still experience that world? And I ended up in vintage Omega and vintage Rolex mostly.
Right.
I mean that's.
Well, tell them how we got this watch. So I called you up.
Yep.
So for me, when I do collecting, the most important thing is I don't go to ADs because it's been a bad experience all around. I'm going to be very specific, Rolex 80s. The other guys, fantastic. But this whole stand in line, take a number that doesn't exist, and then wait a year and a day. For me, my philosophy is the most precious thing I have besides my health is my time. And I'm not going to, I'm up there in years, and I'm not going to just stand there and play the game. So I did some research and I found Theo Harris, I found Christian, and
quite a few months ago too.
Several months ago, and I said, I've always been a watch guy, and I wanted to start building on some of the watches that I was gifted, some that I've collected, and we can get into that. But this was the one I wanted, and because I want to wear, I want like the watch that is my everyday wear, because I've got over 20 watches, and there's not one that is like my everyday wear. Well, there is. It's a Casio 5000 or 500, whatever it is. It's the Solar. But I wanted a really nice watch that was understated, fly under the radar.
First of all, even the most basic Polar Explorers are interesting. I like Polar Explorers. They're beautiful.
I love them.
The problem with Polar Explorers, and this isn't a problem, but the conversation was also informed by you saying, I'm looking for something that's more unusual, something that has, maybe upward mobility, something that, that is odd.
Right.
So I said, the problem with Polar Explorers is that there really are so many of them, right? Very much like, some Submariner models like, 14060 or whatever it may be.
Right.
And I said, well, that's the thing. It's a beautiful thing because that keeps the prices down, because there are so many and they don't get attention.
Exactly.
But for your purposes, I'm not sure that that's what you're looking for. And you said, you're right, So we ended up, talking, and I had this watch. This is a larger Explorer, and it was a more expensive Explorer, and I didn't offer it to Dave at all. I thought that
No, because I gave you a price point.
I gave you a price point, and I me, we've done business enough times to know.
He's going to push anything.
I don't push anything. I don't push anything. So I didn't even bring up this watch. I didn't bring it up. So we talked about things. I told you maybe I'd find something for you. I definitely would, but give me some time.
Yep.
And then he calls me a couple of days or whatever it was. And
about 4 hours.
4 hours later, and he's like, "Hey, is there a reason that you didn't mention this watch that is in the shop? This Explorer? Like, it actually seems to fit the bill quite well."
Yeah, you turtle.
Yeah.
You was over your price point.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, "No, Dave, I mean, it was a little bit above the price point. I don't do that." And he's like, "No, I know you don't do that, but you should have. Let's talk about it." So we ended up talking about it.
Right.
And, the whole Theo Harris shop and world has totally been informed by what I think is interesting.
Yeah.
All the watches are not the most mass market watches in the world. They're watches that I think are interesting and that I would wear, I'd give to my dad or recommend to a cousin.
Right.
That's the whole shop.
Right.
If we were a much larger shop, it would have to be more mass market.
Yeah.
But it's a small shop. It's a curated shop, so it
Right.
can kind of afford to be smaller and more personal.
And, and that brings up an interesting point. So when I decided to get back into really collecting watches and acquiring the stuff that I couldn't afford when I was younger, like the Rolexes, some of the Omegas, I wanted to find someone who could guide me down that path and that journey. And finding a trusted advisor, that's really, you got to be careful. So I got to know you. Mm-hmm. We met, and I'm a pretty good judge of character.
we had
some pretty good conversations over coffee and stuff. I said, okay, this guy knows he knows the industry, he knows the game. Yeah. He's not going to play me. I trust him, so I'm gonna stand on his shoulders and let him, Christian and Theo Harris, because I watch all their YouTubes late at night on my iPad, which my wife is like, what are you doing? You're not buying another watch, are you? And I'm like, no. Of course not. Why?
No. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Chef IQ, the people behind the world's best wireless meat thermometer. Say goodbye to the days of having over or undercooked roast fish, beef, whatever it may be, turkey coming Thanksgiving, and also all that anxiety when you are hosting, which is the worst, right? You want to be a relaxed host. You want to enjoy the party as well. That's really why I love Chef IQ the most, right? Not only do their wireless meat thermometers, which are sold in 1, 2, and 3 probe packages, and they're perfect for not only yourself but also for gifts and gift giving. I know Christmas is coming around. You should get Thanksgiving gifts as well. But it totally reduces that anxiety. It makes hosting a total pleasure, and it maximizes the enjoyment of, for us, beautiful meals. Their brilliant app features real-time cooking alerts that keep you accountable. They take the wheel, basically, so that you can be more relaxed and just enjoy your food. It works in an air fryer, deep fryer, smoker, stove, oven, or sous vide. So if you'd like to make Chef IQ your own or a gift, which I definitely think you should, the link is down below. Thank you to Chef IQ. You guys know how much I love you. I'm gonna go use mine. Actually, I am gonna use mine tonight. I'm making Lent.
And I always kind of poo-pooed Rolex because I thought it was like this sort of bushy, expensive. Everyone, people wear them. They don't know what they're wearing. So you're paying for a name and stuff like that. And I thought that as far as recently as about a year ago. And then when I started talking to you and then doing some research, I found out, you know what? I was wrong. They're actually fantastic movements. Yeah, there's mass marketing. I don't like the AD game at all. I refuse to play it. So I started to amass a small, modest, I think I have about 6 Rolexes. And I go for me, it's got to be iconic and historical.
And often interesting.
And interesting.
Like the day date that you had purchased was a really weird watch. I mean,
it was very weird.
Dave calls me up one day. I was also away at that time. I was in Barcelona at that point. And calls me up and he's like, all right, I want a day date. I saw one on your wrist. I actually saw this one on my wrist. Right? I saw that day date.
Oh, that one.
It's still been in my head. Find me a really interesting day date, please. So, all right. So it took a little while.
Did I say please?
Well, you may have not said please, but the question was nice. Dave's always nice. So I was like, all right. So it took me a little while, and I waited, and I always ask for some patience because I could always send you something that I find. But if it's not really interesting, then you start to erode the trust. So I found at one point, again, I was on a work trip, and I get a message from someone that I know that they were selling this. Was it an 80s, right? Mid-80s?
Yeah.
Rolex Day-Date, champagne dial, was it Portuguese? What was it, Portuguese?
Yes.
Day window.
Portuguese
really
day
unusual.
Window.
Day. It was so cool.
Right.
And when I sent it to him, because again, I know you want it interesting. This is definitely interesting. But maybe this is something that you don't want because I can understand someone, if they don't speak Portuguese, not wanting a Portuguese. I understand that. So I basically called them up and I was like, listen, you wanted an interesting date. I found one. I've looked at 50.
And that's all I needed to hear.
And I found one. And I can understand if you don't want it. I can understand if you don't want a champagne dial. I can understand if you don't want a Portuguese day window. I can understand that. But this is, objectively speaking, a very interesting date. And I do think you should at least look at it.
Yeah.
And it had papers too, right?
It had papers. It had papers. It had the punch card.
The whole
thing.
It was a brand new Camille Fournet alligator strap. I was like, Dave, the freaking strap was beautiful.
Yeah,
right?
it was.
And all these different things. And I said, I would recommend you consider it. He looked at it and he's like, yeah, you're right. This is a really cool watch. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I love that, right? Because that was an unusual experience.
So that brings up a point, and I've asked myself this. One, I don't know if this is true for the people out there, but for me, it's like, do I collect the interesting watches because I have something no one else has? Mm-hmm. Is it that thing, I've got something you're not going to have?
Right.
And, that's an ego thing. That's totally ego-driven. And I wonder how much of this hobby, this passion is driven by that, as opposed to, there's a bit of that for me. There's a bit of the investment. There's a bit of historical value. I've got a lot of World War I, World War II vintage watches. Because of the historical significance, I don't know that they're particularly investment grade.
No, it's interesting. I mean, I'm trying to, kind of digest what you just said because, there's a level of ego to it, and that's right. But if you take a second look, the watches that you have, generally speaking, maybe apart from your GMT that you had bought, like the Pepsi or the Jubilee, barring that, you don't buy hype watches that are recognized as they're the hype watches, right?
Right.
You buy watches that you are proud of, which is different than watches that other people are proud of or impressed by. That's different. Right. That's different.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking to myself, I take a lot of pride in my watch collection because my watch collection definitely represents that I kind of know what I'm doing and it's kind of interesting and it's personal. If a watch person looked at my collection, whether they liked it or hated it, most people would probably not like it because it's mine, right? It's you're not supposed to like everyone's watch collection, right?
No.
But they would still say that's really personal. This guy has put a lot of time into.
This is true. I've seen some of your watches, and some of them are super blinged.
Yeah, right.
Like
the Piagets.
gold, yeah, and diamonds and stuff, and I'm like, that's a women's watch.
That's a woman's watch. That's exactly right. Yeah,
It's like,
or it's Liberace's watch.
I was about
Yeah,
to say,
yeah, yeah.
I'm not Liberace.
Yeah.
I was thinking that exactly.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that on the way on the drive down here. I was like, yeah, I don't because I'm not Liberace.
All right.
But
You were thinking about me in a dress. That's what you.
No, but you could pull that off.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure I could pull that off.
Of course, it's because it's absurd, and that's kind of the point, right? Your collection, if your collection is not objectionable to a lot of people,
Right.
it's not that personal to you.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Right. I mean.
Yep.
It's the same thing with, I mean, with anything, right? Being mealy-mouthed, being, not thoughtful.
Yeah.
If your opinions are not nuanced and very personal, and in turn kind of objectionable to many,
Yeah.
they're not very well thought out opinions. They're not personal. You haven't considered them. They're just. You're neither hot nor cold. You're lukewarm. That's why I spew you out of my mouth, right? I mean,
that's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. I mean, so my collection is like all over the place, from like Hamilton, Zinn, CWC, Zenith, Omega, Rolex, the Cartier, the one you advised me to go
That's
pick
right.
up, the gray tank.
I remember.
That one. What's interesting is I'm OCD, and so there's a component of like, I'm not going to wear that, that I'm going to wear, but the other ones are like hidden away, and I don't know that I would wear them. Because you hear so many stories about people getting rolled. You wear a Rolex. You got to be very conscious of where you go, where you travel, what you do. Like, I'm planning a vacation. I'm going to go across different time zones. I'm not so sure I'm going to take that through an airport.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I speak to people about this all the time. People that are excited to go on a trip and which watch should I bring, which watch should I wear, and I, kind of always say, do whatever you want. Are you asking what I do?
Yeah.
Because what I do is I don't, right? I mean, I don't. I travel very, very light, lightly. I bring maybe a watch, and it's not a watch that attracts a lot of attention. I'll bring my Omega Seamaster oftentimes.
And
right?
Omega's a good
That is a
good watch.
$2,000 watch that for me is very sentimental as well.
Right.
So I really love wearing it. But it's not like it's not a watch that I'm likely to get robbed wearing. And by the way, I think I've told you this. Like, it's not just like boogeyman stuff. I get messages all the time from people who have gotten robbed recently.
Oh yeah.
I became somewhat acquainted with someone that was working at a hotel in a foreign city, and he introduced me to the network of people that work at hotels that have these horror stories.
Oh, yeah.
So I hear these really bad stories how people are targeted, and people that work at hotels. The guy that I know, he tells his clients all the time, leave it at home.
Yeah,
you're a sitting duck. We're a luxury hotel. What do you? We're a hub for people that have things. You're gonna get
You're
targeted.
gonna get profiled and targeted.
It's
and
true.
You're gonna get rolled.
So we can sit around and kind of put our heads in the sand and pretend as if that's not true because it makes ourselves feel better, but it actually is true.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is what it is. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality.
And then the question is that I grapple with is, I've got a really decent collection now. I wouldn't say sizable, but it's a good collection, and it runs the gamut. So you say to yourself, well, okay, when's enough?
Right.
And then that next watch appears. And it's like,
which one recently just did for you? You were just telling me earlier.
Right. So that watch is the first Omega in space on the steel bracelet.
What did you like about that watch when you saw it?
The patina.
Yeah.
The faux patina. And I know that's really very controversial. I love it.
I love faux patina.
People are going to hate it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it and I'm not a chrono guy or a tachymeter guy at all. And it's a hard watch, depending upon the light, to read. It's not like that, where you're like, yep, boom, and you're gone. But it's just the historical significance of that watch.
Yeah.
And even though it's the 60th anniversary of it, they made improvements on the movement and things like that. I was like, it's a cool watch. Probably will be the last for a while.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
No, well, you say that now.
Right.
But I think, and this is a point I've kind of made on faux patina on many occasions. I think he gets a really bad rap. I love faux patina. I guess here what I actually love is, I see no boundary, and I see no reason why a brand wouldn't play with color, right, and make color a part of the decision-making process. Right. I don't think it's disingenuous. I don't think that they are pretending as if it's old. It's not old. If you look at any of these watches, they are very clearly very new.
Right.
They are new, and it's not just the technology. There's nothing, and frankly, it reminds me of there was a Hodinkee Talking Watches episode many years ago with a company called Icon. It was Icon Cars. I forget the gentleman's name. I actually sold him a couple of watches many years ago. But what they would do is basically they call the cars derelict. So they would take a car, resto mod it so it's perfectly functional.
Yeah.
But they would turn the car into visually kind of a piece of crap, piece of shit, right?
Right.
And that was like their perspective. And you could like it or hate it. That's fine. It doesn't really matter to me. But it's not the same thing as changing the color and making it less stark. Because that's what happens with a lot of these watches, right? You have a bright, white, pure, minute marker indice.
Right.
And it's kind of stark. It's actually not smooth, and it doesn't meld well. It doesn't blend well with blues. It's kind of uncomfortable. I wouldn't. It kind of doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's funny because like the one thing I heard, like, so I watch like Mr. Wonderful. He does videos with Teddy and other guys, and he gave a really good piece of advice: buy the dial first.
Yeah.
Buy the face, buy the dial. And if that doesn't speak to you, you're never going to.
And nothing will. I definitely agree. You need to buy in on that front, most people, before everything else. Because you do become disenchanted with watches after looking at them if from day one you were never actually that interested in the dial. Right? Because that is what's, that's what's going to get you.
Without a doubt.
And you see it all the time. I mean, there are Pateks that I really like that I think are really good value Pateks, actually, like annual calendars that you can get around $30,000 or that are great. And I love the logical offering. I love that it's a complicated Patek. I love that it's a complication that Patek pioneered, Patek invented the annual calendar, right? In an attempt to kind of democratize the concept of the perpetual. I love that. But the dials often have problems, and it's like, ooh, is that going to bother me?
Yeah, that would drive me up a wall.
And it will. 100%. And if it bothers you a little bit today, you know what's going to bother you 6 months from now?
Right.
When you're no longer in the romance period, for sure,
And so what's your next watch?
Fabulous question. Some people have just asked me this the other day, So here's a good question, or this is going to relate to your sentiments about the authorized dealer world. So I was speaking to someone just the other day that has a lot of Journe watches, right? FP Journe watches. There's quite a few, right? And he's a very nice guy. He may be watching this, I don't know. And every time I see him, he asks the same silly question, which is, and I don't think he forgets my answer, right? Because I give the same answer every time. But he goes, well, why don't you have a Journe? And I give the same answer every time, which is, well, because I don't have a relationship with the company, and it's you can't get a Journe unless you have a relationship with the company, and I don't have a relationship. To which his follow-up is always, well, would you want a relationship? To which my follow-up is always, there's a reasonable Journe that I would like, but I don't want any Journe. Right. I mean, I understand that you can't get something incredible. You can't get a crazy allocation piece. But there's an entry-level Journe that I like. I like the Chronometre Souverain Havana. Have you seen this watch? No. I'll show it to you. It's a very beautiful watch. I really like it. It's a time-only watch. But I think they're really beautiful. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a beautiful watch.
It's a beautiful complication.
It has the beautiful, typography. It has the power reserve.
So what is that? What is that?
The retail price is like $40,000 for argument's sake.
I'm out.
$40,000. It's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money. But the secondary value is like $85,000. But I would never sell it. That's not a question there, right? But the question is, are you willing to do what it takes to get an allocation for a watch? And
so you can only get that through an AD?
You can only get through an AD.
You can get that on the secondary market.
But $85,000. So now now you certainly can't get it, right?
That's a point.
So the answer always is, and I have the same conversation. The third time I have the same conversation with this gentleman, and it ends with him saying, "So you are interested?" And I say, "Yeah. I mean, if there aren't many hoops
does he have what he wants to sell you?
If there aren't many hoops to jump through, then yeah, I would like the watch. I'm in no rush, but I would like the watch. I think it'd be really, really cool to get it. But if there are hoops to jump through, which is understandable, I'm not asking to be the exception to the rule.
Right.
But if there are hoops, then
I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to do it. And like, we don't need to have it. Like, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't, I love owning things. I love experiencing things, but I don't have that like obsessive, I need to have that right now. I don't have that.
Right.
If I can get it, that's great. If I can't, that's also just fine. I have a low anxiety level when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Right.
Whereas some people become obsessive compulsive about, if I don't have, I won't be resting until I have them.
Yeah,
I don't have
your brain goes into a hyper mode,
which is crazy.
And then you start to seize on that watch, and then you start watching every video ever made about that watch, and then that becomes so ingrained in your head,
right?
You can't get it out.
It's the same idea about restaurants or clubs or whatever. There are essentially two kinds of people, right? The kind of person that sees a line outside and says, "I got to get there,"
right?
Which is many people, and then there's me. I see a line outside and I'm like, "Dad, fuck that! No way!" You know what I mean? Like, no way! I am not going anywhere near that place. I have no interest.
Yeah.
No interest.
Well, that's because I'm the same way, and that's basically because I don't like people.
Right. No, that's exactly right. That is exactly right.
I'm certainly not going to immerse myself in a crowd of people that, it's like...
more people now?
Please.
And that was, again, it's so much fun about the watch, kind of hobby or any hobby.
Yeah.
Is, and I think that you and I are a really good example of this. You can meet and talk about this common interest that is watches, but you often find out that you've got actually a ton, kind of more in common. And other, there are things that you're into that I have had no interest in, but I'm interested in your perspective on the things, right? Like you were just talking about the comic book collecting.
Yeah,
you've talked about horses.
Horses. Yeah.
I'm really interested in that stuff. I don't need to do it, but I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about it.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, on the comic book, I'm sure that we have some collectors there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts
on comic books? I think that in terms of total collecting as a whole, whether it's watches, comic books, or whatever, COVID, you saw this massive spike up, and then it's falling down. So for comic books, I can tell you that right now, the Silver Age, Bronze Age comics have taken a big hit. And there's some talk in theory that they may not come back. Golden Age stuff, Golden Age comic books, which are defined as like the beginning, World War, like 1940s, 30s, late 30s, early 40s are holding value. They the hindsight's always 20/20. COVID would have been the time if you were going to liquidate, that would have been the time. But they've sort of held their value, is the Golden Age stuff. And my comic book collection has always been, and I've been doing that since I was a kid, was, again, it's very similar to the watches. It had to be iconic and historical. So anything that was like World War II with Captain America fighting the Allied, the axis of evil, I was going to buy that. And I've got those. I've started selling off a lot of my Silver Age stuff, and I'm keeping the Golden Age, the Captain America stuff, because my oldest son said, I might be interested in that.
That's pretty cool.
And my younger son is a huge watch guy. I've given him quite a bit of my watches. I had a tag that I bought like 30 years ago or 25 years ago that had a Coke. I don't know if you know this one. It had the Coke bezel with the little red over here, and I just recently brought it in to get it serviced, and the guy was looking at it saying, "Holy cow, we've never seen one of these."
Wow, how cool!
In real life.
And you bought it from the AD all those years ago?
In Greenwich, Connecticut. When I was there, I wanted to, I don't know if it was an AD or just a jewelry shop. They had it. It spoke to me. I said, "Yeah, let's." I did it.
That's awesome.
And he just loved it. And he said to me recently, I said, "Why do you like that watch so much?" Because you wear it. He goes, "I wear it special occasion." And he goes, "Why?" He goes, "Because," he said, that's Dad's watch." And I lapped the globe twice with that watch.
It's awesome.
And so he said, that's you. I'm wearing you.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a piece of you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I talked to him about my watch collection and everything, and he'll probably get it. Because my older son, he'd care less. He's more like, I want the comic books. The younger guy's like, I want the watches, you know. And there are other things I collect. I'm a big collector of various things, so.
But I think that's interesting. I was talking to a friend about this over the summer. I'm sure he's watching. And you know, what do you do with your collection? I mean, what is the plan? I look about it with my collection as well, right? How many loved ones, friends and family, do you think should get and would appreciate a piece, one of your pieces? How many pieces do you own that are worth
that? Yeah, right. Significant amount of money.
Oh, no, I meant even, worth. How many pieces actually have a connection to you, so that when someone would wear them years from then, it would say, "This was Christian's watch. This was Dan's watch."
Yeah, right.
If I have watches, I'm sure that I own that are in my collection, that if I were to give them posthumously to someone, they'd be like, what the fuck is that? Like, what? I never saw him wear this. This isn't sentimental. Like, yeah, right. Like, this is going to get sold, right?
Yeah, right.
But then there are watches, like this watch would be 100% a piece that someone, whoever gets it,
right. Like I know, for like example, like all of my Omegas and my Rolexes and a few of the other ones. I know my youngest son, he's already claimed them. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are some he's like, yeah, you know, he's got a different taste. He's like rose gold. Yeah. He likes the precious metals and stuff like that. But he appreciates these for what they are.
For sure.
And so, you know, if I were to give someone a watch, and I have given people watches, you know, even, you know, people I know that are friends, that I know they're going to appreciate it. You know,
that has to be it. Because if there's not a level of appreciation, sentimentality there,
then I'm going to sell it.
It should just be sold, and you just part with it and give your kids the money. I mean,
exactly.
You know, because even the value of it, like, it's kind of burdensome to give your kids a bunch of watches that really that same emotional idea could have been communicated with like 3. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why am I, because a lot of people have 20, 30, 40 watches. I mean, and some people of varying degrees of wealth have, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in watches. What do you think your kids are going to do with your, you know, with your $500,000 watch? And I hear this all the time. I mean, you know, it sounds like a crazy amount of money.
No, but it's the same thing with comic books, because, like, you know, as I started selling this, the guy I sold the collection to came over, and he looked at the Golden Age stuff and goes, "Hey, I want that." And I said, "Well, I'm kind of holding that off for my son."
Right.
And I was talking to my son, and he's like, "What do you want to do?"
Right.
You know, he goes, "I want those."
Yeah.
He goes, you know, unless you can get an outrageous sum, which is probably double what the market value is right now.
Right.
He goes, I like to have those.
Yeah. Agreed.
You know.
Agreed.
So I think it depends on the kid or the individual you're giving it to.
Exactly, and that relationship,
that emotional connection.
100%. And I look at it, you know, I think about it, you know, often enough, and you know, say, what would be more meaningful if I gave a cousin a watch, a buddy a watch, or maybe their kid. Right.
Yeah.
I have a cousin that, you know, that I've given him a watch. I actually gave him a beautiful Christopher Ward not that long ago, with the moon phase and everything.
Yeah,
beautiful watch. He had always kind of made jokes that he didn't have like a great watch.
Right.
And he made fun of me because I was the watch guy. So then one year for Christmas, and we don't even exchange gifts, I bought him that watch and I gave him that watch, and he loved it. But other than that, I wouldn't give him a watch posthumously, and hopefully he should bury me, not vice versa. But you know, I'm sorry, I should bury him, not vice versa. He's much older than I am. But I 100% would look at it like a great sign of respect to give his daughter something someday, my little cousin, right?
Exactly.
It's a great respect to your, you know, of our relationship.
I think so, and it's like, you know, when I become a grandfather, you know, I'm sure that my grandchildren, you know, it's like I'll take them down when they're little and sit them down and say, "Hey, these are watches, and this is what they mean, and this is you know, some of these watches are part were like the World War IIs and the World War I's were passed down." from family.
So that's,
members.
I mean,
So those are very, very different. That's a whole different. It's like something you don't ever want to see leave.
no, God, no.
fa-
No, it's actually your
family.
responsibility as the heir
Right.
to preserve that. It's your job.
Exactly.
There are strings attached to your inheritance, and one of them is you can never sell these watches.
Right.
I agree.
Exactly. But it's just it's. I've always kind of been fascinated by watches, and but have you ever had a negative reaction when someone saw Rolex and said, "Oh, Rolex, you're kind of a douche"?
Only ever in Germany.
In Germany.
In Germany, Germans do not like. I mean, of course, some idiot's going to say, "Oh, I'm a German and I like." I know. I'm speaking in my anecdotal experience,
Yeah.
which is fairly extensive. Spent a bit of time in Germany, and overwhelmingly, more than anywhere else I've ever been,
Yeah.
Rolex gets a bad rap. And I've been told that it's too showy, it's too flashy.
Okay.
And Germans, in my experience, reject that.
Right.
They prefer kind of like very understated classic, often on leather, often
Right.
thinner,
Right.
more like a Cellini. But at this point, the Rolex brand, I think, is a little bit tainted for them just because it is inherently so braggadocious.
It is, and I've seen
don't
it.
wear it.
I've seen it here in the U.S. among family members who are like, oh, that guy's got a Rolex. He's an asshole.
Right.
And it's like, okay,
Right.
why?
That's a cultural just difference within America, yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? And he said, well, because that's just a showpiece. I said, well, horologically, if you know anything about watches, it's really not.
Right.
That doesn't mean every Rolex is fantastic, but their movements are really, really good. Look, are there better movements? Sure.
Right, more complicated.
And yeah, are you buying a massive marketing brand? Yeah, you are, but that's kind of part of the experience, So
No, agreed.
there's that part of it, and my tastes have changed. Now I'm more of a steel bracelet guy as opposed to I was strictly NATO.
Yeah, you had mentioned
Strictly
that.
NATO guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then leather band. Look, I got. My brother just passed away about a year ago, and he was young. And right before he passed, like 3 days before, he said, "I want you to have this watch." And I was like, "Oh, why don't you give it to your kid? You've got a son who's like 28 or something like that." He's like, "I got a different watch for him, but he isn't going to appreciate this." So, and it wasn't a great watch. It's a Raymond Weil, don't want to diss Raymond Weil fans, but it's your standard Raymond Weil watch. And
It wasn't a
very
watch
thin.
of profound value. And
No, it's a quartz
exceptionalism.
watch, and not that quartz is bad. I think quartz is great. But that watch has really special meaning to me.
Of course.
I mean, that watch was like my brother's watch.
Of course.
And that'll get passed down. Speaking of quartz watches, I think talking about underestimated watches. To me, one of the watches that I own that I could just stare at that secondhand all day and just be totally satisfied is this Grand Seiko spring drive.
Yeah, they're great.
I mean, you look at just how that thing moves and sweeps, and it's
fabulous.
I haven't seen another watch like that. I mean, is there another one like that?
No, I mean, no. Grand Seiko, stands in a league of its own.
But the
technology
spring
is
drive,
totally
just the
unique.
spring drive.
No, it's totally. I mean, the only other company that shares the Grand Seiko spring drive, I believe, is Seiko.
Yeah.
I believe that Seiko also kind of dips into that technology because they own Grand Seiko, which is a little bit of a point of contention between the brands because you're kind of fucking with me. They look at it.
How? If
I
I
think the Grand
spent
Seiko
the R&D dollar.
Right. No, I agree with you.
I
know,
did that.
objectively speaking, as a matter of ownership, 100%. I think that some of the people that work at the brand just feel like you're giving us the task of growing this brand, and we accept the challenge.
Yeah.
But you're also kind of standing in our way because the biggest problem that we have is that people associate us with Seiko, which we say that we're not, meaning as a matter of like quality, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
But now you're selling our technology. So, I understand both points. But yes, as a sheer matter of, business and ownership, I'm the one that paid for everything. I own it. Fuck off.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. You're getting a salary last time I checked. Okay. And
You're right.
So
You're right. I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. But
know.
listen, not all things that are fair feel good. Right? You have plenty. I've used this all the time. I mean, it's like there's a Seinfeld episode about it, right? I mean, when Babu's restaurant is going to close, that's sad, and everyone feels bad when honest business people go to business. I happened with an Indian restaurant that wasn't too far from here a couple of years ago. I remember like kind of being like sad. I was
sure.
Fucking mom cooking Indian food that was delicious, and it goes out of business. It's fair. It went out of business. It's fair. You didn't win. You didn't know. You didn't know how to run the business. The market didn't accept it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's still sad. It still kind of sucks.
It's the shit happens.
Shit happens.
And it happens to good people.
Yep.
More often than bad.
Yep.
And
right.
that's the world we live in.
My mom says that all the time. She's like, bad people just have a funny way of just never having to pay for the consequences of their behavior.
And my take on that is,
I'm like, oh well, have you met God?
Today, Today, yes. Let's talk let's see how it goes for him afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too religious on you.
No, I know.
But there's like I watch a lot of YouTube stuff. Your stuff's really informative. It's factual, and then there's the hype stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hype stuff.
Yeah.
But there's like 3 or 4 YouTubers that the one that if I need to fall asleep to.
Yep.
Not that the guy's boring is he does repairs. He does vintage repairs. And
so it's like an ASMR sort of situation with clicking sounds.
Yeah.
And,
well, he takes it apart. He's like the Bob Ross of watch repairs.
Yeah. That's very peaceful.
So my wife watches. She's like, yeah, this is really soothing.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I didn't realize what went into these watches. I go, oh yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely. But Dave.
But yeah.
Fantastic conversation. Thanks for sitting down.
Thank you for getting.
Yeah, I know I haven't given it to you yet.
This is it, guys. This is it.
If you guys have enjoyed this, kind of out of the blue sort of conversation and sit down, I hope you did. Comment down below your thoughts, and if you like it, we'll do more sit downs.
And I just want to do a shout out to my company because I'm shameless. I'm in cybersecurity and work for a company. We've just developed a fantastic authentication digital identity because everything you own is on there. And it's not protected. And the company's called Resilient, RESILIANT.com. Check it out, because this is your life, and it's not protected. I can tell you that for a fact.
There you go. Terrific. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.